All right, here we go. Here we go. It's time to do something a little different today. Today, I want to do kind of a public service announcement. I want to talk a little bit about um, something that we mentioned in our, crypto conversations these days. Over the last year, we know that one of the topics of discussion that has really captivated a lot of people is the idea that a country or even a city, right? No, Miami does it as well, but a country itself has classified and declared Bitcoin as legal tender. That being said, that comes with a lot of the criticism of the naysayers and the non-believers in cryptocurrency. That's okay because the president of the country that we all know is El Salvador. The president himself, Bukele, right? He decided that no matter what anybody thought, he had the information, he had the research. Um, I guess he did his due diligence and determined that Bitcoin would be classified as legal tender in his country of El Salvador. So today, our topic is going to be about 1 year on, what does it look like? But if the Bitcoin price, we all know when they were purchasing Bitcoin, when they first announced Bitcoin as legal tender, and they did everything they could to prepare their people and I'm sure educate them on how to utilize a crypto wallet, how to transfer crypto back and forth. They even gave away lots of cryptocurrency or Bitcoin to their people to get started. I think like $30 worth just to do the transactions, just to, play around and figure out how to do this. And let's move into the new world, right? Let's move forward a little bit. Let's be leaders, trend fronters of this digital age. And they actually put forth effort to make that happen. The government really pushed forward to say, we are going to do this. Well, one of the things that was a direct result of that, even though now, 1 year later, a lot of the statistics, a lot of the information, a lot of the um, um, audience or onlookers are saying, well, you know what? You announced that there was going to be a Bitcoin city, right? And you obviously, just like any other municipality, any other government, country, city, state, you have to raise funds in order to make that happen. Um, and it was going to take a lot of funds to create a Bitcoin city. So I think part of what this president of El Salvador was doing was obviously to create a lot of optimism about digital currency, about the future of money, about the digital age that their country was leading the world in, right? You hear about it in China trying to create some kind of digital currency. I mean, the US has obviously been trying to create digital currency as well. But there's been, so many countries trying to put this together. The Bahamas literally was the first to create what they call the sand dollar, which was digital currency. And they actually use it as legal tender. But El Salvador was the first to announce that Bitcoin would be used as legal tender. But 1 year on, where are we? What is the effect of being the first to allow Bitcoin to be legal tender and then to try to push that into the society on the blockchain, on the digital train that is required for that to become accepted by the masses? 1 year on, what was the actual impact of announcing Bitcoin as legal tender? Well, I get a report. One of the really great newsletters I get is from an agency called Blockworks, right? Blockworks talks about blockchain, events and all things blockchain and crypto around the globe. I mean, really, really good information. Some of it's pulled from other sources and it's just consolidated into the newsletter. Well, what I love about it is one, they have some very colorful um, diagrams and graphics on their newsletter, but more so the content is spot on, right? It's something that I love to go through and get updates on what's happening in crypto and blockchain around the globe. Well, here's the title that captivated me and really pushed me to do this. I don't do this all the time. I talk about different things. I talk about my, current holdings in the crypto space, but I really like this story. And when you're on, you know, it Bitcoin that caught on, or was it the attraction of having Bitcoin as legal tender, the first country, right? Did that attract the crypto enthusiasts and created some type of um, aura of a crypto haven where you now, as a crypto enthusiast around the globe that is actually huddling Bitcoin, now you felt like, hey, I can go to El Salvador, right? I don't have to go to Portugal because Portugal is very crypto friendly. I don't have to go to Puerto Rico. I don't have to go to, some of these other places that are crypto friendly. I can actually go to El Salvador and purchase an ice cream cone with my crypto. I can go to a coffee shop, which is, always the example, and purchase with Bitcoin. I can go to a retail store and purchase with Bitcoin because everybody there will accept it. And so the offshoot of announcing that your country is going to be the leader, right, when it comes to Bitcoin, you would believe that you would have this influx of crypto enthusiasts coming to your country. Now, I'm gonna tell you, it did happen. So that right there is probably the more powerful aspect of the effect that announcing Bitcoin as legal tender in El Salvador, that was probably the most powerful effect over the last year, was the tourism associated with purchasing with your Bitcoin. So that was a big deal for the El Salvador country. Is the locals not so much purchasing and transaction between each other, right? Because we know it's one of the poorest countries in the world. But at the end of the day, they did see a influx in tourism associated with crypto enthusiasts that visited the country. I did see, if you watch me and I have contacts with a lot of the great, crypto, YouTubers and some of the Facebook guys out there that's really, in this industry doing great things. One of my colleagues, CPMD, right, Quentin, he actually does a lot of Facebook stuff, but he does have, the YouTube video, as well. But CPMD, he did talk about his time in El Salvador as well. And so him and UIGI, right, with Rabu Gary, they had some time um, in the El Salvador. I know that CPMD did, but I wasn't sure if it's associated with Robert Gary or if it was just on his own and his own particular events that he was partaking in. One of the things that he did talk about as a result of that trip to El Salvador was, I think it was another guy, but it was about um, somebody that had been watching his videos and maybe follow a lot of the programs that he announces, through his platform, and they had earned enough. I think it was DHF that did give this person, that leg up. And DHF was a big deal because CPND was one of the first to really, really attract a lot of people into crypto through that DHF platform. And he became one of the admins of the DHF group on Telegram. And that's how I found out about DHF, actually through CPMD. So he's definitely a pioneer when it comes to this online space with crypto and online investing. But he did talk about the effect that just, him announcing and him talking about great programs and earning crypto there was a guy he met that said he actually bought a motorcycle with his crypto. I think he paid half and half, right? Some with crypto and other with the currency. So he was very excited that that he saw that happen, and somebody actually did something good based upon something that he had put out there into the world. So really, really does show that it does work. People do watch you. People do take your advice. People actually will run with that information, and if it works out for them in the end, which we all want it to work out, then they could be the recipient of a transaction done in cryptocurrency because they did take some of your recommendations on different platforms. So today I want to read you some information from the newsletter that I have, and I just really was excited about this. So, if you're interested in this space and you like, this type of information, then hey, join me in, listening to kind of what I have to say about this particular space and this particular industry. So let me go ahead and just kind of pull up a little information, and maybe this is something that will appeal to you as well. All right, hold on one second. Let me find what I am looking for. All right, here we go. 1 year in, El Salvador's Bitcoin bonds could be right around the corner. Now, that's interesting because that the president there, that President Nayib Bukele, he was actually trying to go ahead and create the Bitcoin city, right? And so trying to create that Bitcoin city, then he was able to go ahead and present some really cool information about accepting Bitcoin as legal tender, but at the same time, he needed to raise funds. And how was he going to do that? Well, his intention was to raise funds by utilizing volcanic bonds, right? The volcanic bonds. And you're like, what is volcanic bonds? Well, let me give you a little more insight to it by going through this article. And hopefully you're interested in this as just as I am, and you'll be informed just as I was when I read this article. So in the news, Blockworks talks about El Salvador 1 year on and how tourism became really the impact after the announcement of El Salvador taking on Bitcoin as legal tender. So, 1 year after becoming the first country to render Bitcoin legal tender, many of the El Salvador's more ambitious plans have yet to materialize, but private partners are holding out because they hope things are going to get better. Officials have not broken ground on the president's promise of Bitcoin City, a Bitcoin bond funded hub to be run on volcanic power. The elusive volcanic bonds, as we talked about a little bit, as President Bukele calls them, once advertised as sovereign, are now securitized. Securitized is a security corporate blockchain bond. If they get off the ground, it will be the first of such an offering. Right. So Bitcoin bonds or blockchain bonds will be the first of its kind, and they are considered as security. And if you know about tokens, you got security tokens and you have the utility tokens. This is definitely money that they're trying to raise. So they're doing it with bonds. And it's no different from, like I said, local municipalities, using bonds. They sell the bonds and people purchase that, and people can actually buy into new construction by the government, and they get rewarded for that in the end. The bonds, which require minimum investment of $100, were originally slated to launch in March 2022. We're talking about Bitcoin City, right? The rollout was delayed first until May 2022 and then indefinitely put on hold. Officials cited several reasons for the holdup. First, the war in Ukraine, and then a dwindling appetite for the project, then faltering Bitcoin prices. Yeah, that was a huge, huge hit. When they first started purchasing Bitcoin a year ago, Bitcoin was around 30,000, went up to 40,000, got up to about 60,000, and then it dropped. And now it's around 20, 21,000. And so you can imagine the value of whatever investments in Bitcoin. Now that value is cut in half. Very, very tough thing to deal with. Now, sources claim that approval and launch may still become a reality before 2023. Once the digital securities bills, which Bukele originally expected to pass in May, makes it through El Salvador's Congress, plans for the tokenized bonds can move forward. He says we have confirmed from senior government officials that the current draft of the law is final. The chief technology officer, Bitfinex, which will be the technology provider for the volcano token. That is the digitalized form of the debt offering, which is offered by Bitfinex. And Bitfinex is refraining from calling it a bond. They call it a debt offering. They call it a volcano token. They don't call it a bond. Now, in the fiat world, it is called a bond. That's what it is. But in the crypto world, it's going to be called the volcano token. All right. We are confident. This is basically the Bitfinex, executive that's talking. We are confident that the law will obtain approval from Congress in the coming weeks, assuming that the country has the necessary stability for such legislation to pass. If the bill is indeed passed, Bitfinex will apply for a digital securities license to operate in the Central American country. Anyone with access to Bitfinex, hear this, because if you in the US, you know that if you had a Bitfinex account some years ago, you don't have one now. So that's why they say anyone with access to Bitfinex, which is prohibited in countries like the United States, United Kingdom, and Canada, so basically North America, will be able, anybody outside of those three countries will be able to purchase volcano tokens. Right. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. The exchange is anticipating a largely retail audience, as larger institutions may have internal policies prohibiting participation in this particular sale. Even as El Salvador struggles to get its latest Bitcoin ventures off the ground, crypto proponents claim the digital currency has helped the Central American country build back its, what did I say? Tourism industry. El Salvador attracted 1.2 million tourists in 2021 and 1.1 million in the first half of 2022, according to the Ministry of Tourism. You hear what I'm saying? So they're on track to double what they had in tourism from 21 to 2022. That's pretty powerful. And that's because of what? Bitcoin is legal tender, and Bitcoin City is an attraction for a lot of people. So thank you, Bukele. We appreciate the opportunity to give this a go. And we just see adoption and growth happening. And this was something that a Twitter user said, they said on Wednesday. The country's expanding tourism industry aside, economists are uncertain about El Salvador's economic future. So let's go, we got to go there, right? Everything is not all roses. Some people do have issues with it. So the International Monetary Fund, IMF, expects El Salvador's fiscal deficit to reach 5% of gross domestic product in 2022. Right. And so they talk a little bit about a report, which I'm going to hit the report here in a minute and give you just a little bit about it, because it does give some balance to what's going on. Now, there's no pessimism here. What I'm showing is just a report on 1 year later where they are in respect to Bitcoin City and the greater society accepting Bitcoin as legal tender, right? Because I believe that the tourism side of it brings in so much more, right, in the form of revenue to the country, that if you have a lot of crypto enthusiasts that do show up because of that announcement, then whatever non-acceptance within the country is not going to put a lot of pressure on, and make it a negative thing for the country. The country can still move forward. This country has now really brought in more revenue. It may not be in Bitcoin or crypto, but it could be in other currencies because of the attraction it brings. And so inadvertently, you do get the result based upon cryptocurrency versus the fiat. Okay. The IMF forecasts a primary balance for 2022, yet it says the debt is unsustainable under current policies. Okay. So the head of emerging markets sovereign research at Stifel Financial said El Salvador needs a 3% of GDP adjustment to get to the debt to a sustainable level. Persistent fiscal deficits and high debt service are leading to large and increasing financial needs. All right. So that was mentioned in this report. So I went to the report, IMF, right? International Monetary Fund. They did a report called IMF Executive Board Concludes 2021 Article 4 Consultation with El Salvador, right? January 2022. All right. So the IMF was talking about it. So anyway, they mentioned some of the same things, that was mentioned. But here, when I scroll down, I see something that I think is relevant, right? The directors generally agreed on the need to implement a fiscal consolidation starting this year based on high quality revenue and spending measures to restore fiscal sustainability and put public debt on a firm downward trajectory. Right. So they're saying, look, we agree you need to do something different to bring in more revenue and reduce the debt. Directors agreed on the importance of boosting financial inclusion and noted that digital means of payment, such as the Chivo's e-wallet, which they gave everybody, all the citizens, could play this critical role. However, they emphasized the need for strict regulation and oversight of the new ecosystem of Chivo and Bitcoin. They did stress that there are large risks associated with the use of Bitcoin. Well, and they talked about it from a financial stability perspective, financial integrity, and consumer protection, right? And so they urged the authorities to narrow the scope of the Bitcoin law by adjusting, right, how they deal with the Bitcoin legal tender issue within the country. So there are proponents of Bitcoin, and there are warnings that it could go really bad. Now, some people look at this and say, well, the volatility is an issue, right? And I get that piece. The volatility is an issue. Bitcoin has always had a volatility issue, so to speak. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no concern for that. But what they did have an issue with, as far as the volatility of Bitcoin after the announcement, everything was going great for the month, couple of months, 2 or 3 months. Then all of a sudden, yes, there was a crash. Whereas now, if you started out at 30,000, you got up to 60,000, everybody's like, we're going to do this Bitcoin city. We're going big. We're going live. We're going to make this happen. And then all of a sudden, well, we all know what happened to that particular issue. It's kind of a problem. You go up 50% and then you lose, 50% plus. That's a tough one for a country that is really trying to show that they can move forward in the digital world, right, and pull themselves up. We know that some of the fiscally challenged countries that, maybe the West is not favorable of, when you're talking, from a China, which China is kind of sustaining themselves. So they're not really pressured one way or the other. But, when you're talking about Iran, you're talking about Venezuela, you're talking about, El Salvador, they're really struggling to figure out, how do we escape this bondage, right? And so then you have the BRIC countries, which may include Argentina, which may add, some of these other countries pretty soon. But when you do have Russia, right, that was challenged a little bit as well. They saw the writing on the wall. And so they're working with India, they're working with Venezuela, they're working with North Korea. So they're looking at, look, we are our own country, we're our own sovereignty. We can use digital currency to really get around this world reserve currency, with the dollar stamp on it. We have a way to do that. So why not utilize that? And that's where El Salvador has represented that leadership in the future of money, the future of currency, and the future of value transaction without fiat or US dollar currency. And that scares some people. And that's why there's going to be forces, always going to be forces that fight against it. And they do that in the background. So here's an article that I kind of want to talk a little bit about. And the highlighted area, it says this. Reuters, I got this from a Reuters article, and it said the government has also encountered Salvadorians working abroad to send money home through the Chivo government wallet. And they encouraged Salvadorians to send money home through the Chivo government wallet and other private wallets without charging commissions. They really were trying to get the citizens to go ahead and utilize that Chivo wallet, which is, to transfer that Bitcoin back and forth. And so they wanted them to use the wallet so they could get comfortable with it. But because the remittance from outside the country back into the country to the citizens there and their families and everybody back home from expats, that represented 26% of the GDP of the El Salvadorian country. This is one of the highest in the world. You know that Philippines is one with their OWC and the overseas workers, OFWs, and you have your expats and India, Philippines, El Salvador, and I'm sure a lot of other countries, but these are some of the top countries that depend on remittance from outside the country back into the country, really to run the country. But according to statistics from the central bank, between September 2021 and June 2022, the country only received remittances less than 2% from outside the country through digital wallets. So yes, of course they're sending money home. Of course they're utilizing whatever currency that was available when they started. And so the problem they're seeing is, yes, people can believe in the concept of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, but they're not comfortable using that to the level that it needs to be used. So when you're on 26% of the GDP that is normally remitted from outside the country into the country through currencies, they wanted that. They needed to capture that or a good portion of that through digital cryptocurrency, but they were not able to do so. So out of the 26%, only 2% was captured through digital currency. So that's a tough one to deal with, but they're still on path to make it happen, right? And so there's not a lot of details about Bitcoin City and the future of it with the volcano token, but they do have the optimism to continue down that path. All right. So right now I want to go ahead and I'm going to show you one more, and then we're going to move on. All right. So let's go here. And I think that one. Okay. So really to close this out, I found this kind of interesting. A good article though, really good article. So it says a year ago, right? A year ago, Bukali was urging his citizens to hold their money in Bitcoins. Bitcoin, when Bukali announced his plans in July 2021, its value was $35,000. By the time the legislation came through in September of 2021, it was about $45,000. Everybody was excited. It was a windfall. That was awesome. Later in 2021, it got as high as 64,000. So think about it. If you were a trendsetter, a trend leader, trend fronter for a country, not just a municipality of a city or state, a whole country, right? This is revolutionary in the time that some of these places are trying to get their CBDC off the ground, right? Their central bank digital currencies, they're trying around the globe. They're just not able to agree on how to do it. And instead of El Salvador creating a whole new one, they just said, look, we're going to accept Bitcoin. And so when they say it, it's at 35,000. When it passes, it's at 45,000. So they're like, oh, we're going in the right direction. Same thing happened in Miami with the mayor, right? It went the right direction when they announced it. A couple of months later, it goes as high as $65,000. So what do you think? Everybody was like, oh, we're so happy. Thank you. You made a good decision. Hey, now let's go ahead and talk about Bitcoin City and using the volcano and create volcano tokens in order to have volcanic energy or volcanic tokens to support the energy of Bitcoin City. But guess what happened a year later? Bitcoin's worth about $20,000. It's hard to run a city when you are maybe 150% in the opposite direction of where you want to be. So a year ago, Bukele was urging citizens to hold their money in Bitcoins. For anyone who did, at theconversation.com, their article says, for anyone who did, the losses would be devastating. So, I say that to say this. There is still a great opportunity available for anyone that is in the country or outside the country, right? The crypto enthusiasts know, right? And I'm one of them. We know that cryptocurrency is the future of money. It's the future of transactions. It's the future of all things within the fiscal world. Digital currency is definitely the way to go. It's going to be the only sustainable way to transfer value as we continue to grow. The blockchain, smart chains, there's Web 3.0. All of this is more personalized. It's peer-to-peer, and people are going to really take back ownership of their value and how they transfer it without that third party. The world is very afraid of that because they know they're going to lose a lot of money from those unnecessary fees that they've been charging all this time, right? If you're not putting your money in the bank, if you're not asking the bank to move your money from A to B, if you're not asking the bank, right, to move your funds from a savings account to a checking account, from a checking account to a pay a bill, and they're charging you little fees along the way. If you're not asking them to do that, they think they're doing you a favor by giving you 0.03%, 0.02% because you hold it in their accounts. They think they're doing you a favor by giving you a 0.001% of what they get from holding your money. That is fascinating to me. And I believe that what El Salvador has done, they have shown that even though there's going to be challenges, which we already knew that, Miami mayor, even though there's challenges, it will still be the future of currency. It is coming. It is coming fast. And a lot of them have already taken the step. You pay attention, stay tuned, because on a global scale, this is not over. This is just the beginning. And we know that it is just the beginning. All right. So I want to leave you with that concept, that idea, that challenge. I want you to fully grasp that it's not over, because these guys are serious about making Bitcoin the legal tender in any country, in every country across the globe. All right. So until another day, until another time, let's share what's real and what's here for the benefit of all humanity. Hey, that's my topic for the day. 1 year on, El Salvador's Bitcoin bonds could be right around the corner. But what was the real benefit of announcing Bitcoin as legal tender over a year ago? Crypto enthusiasts were attracted to El Salvador, and it made a difference in the revenue generated from tourism alone. And so there was great benefit in it. And we have seen that come to fruition. All right. So, hey, thank you for joining me. Thank you for paying attention. And until next time, peace. And I'm out.